Everyone, David here with a review of the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. entitled Rise and Shine. Ultimately, the most surreal experience I've had watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after experiencing not only the panel, but also the ending of this episode from this past weekend over at Wondercon in Anaheim, California. I managed to attend the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. panel, and I should be posting the Day 2 vlog of Wondercon one of these days coming up. And in it, I talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because that was the panel that they had on Saturday, and along with it, they gave us a sneak preview into literally the ending. They even admitted that it was weird that they were going to do this, but now after watching the episode, it completely makes sense as to why they showed us the ending, because leading up to the ending that kind of catches up with all of our side heroes after the big fallout that was Fitz's betrayal and all that stuff, which was handled really well done. Like, so many characters are obviously going to have beef with one another, and then other characters are going to try to look at the more positive side of things, with Simmons confessing to Fitz about Deke being their grandson, and her kind of eliciting the hope that she felt from the ending of the last episode over to him to make sure that everything's going to be alright, at least with her corner of the universe. Maybe not so much with the rest of the S.H.I.E.L.D. team, since Daisy is like filled with some vile feeling. I don't want to say hatred, but she's definitely feeling some type of way versus Fitz now after their experience from last week, and she's justified in doing so. I mean, the way she even describes it, saying that he cut into her unwilling, it's enough to make you go, yeah, I totally get why you would be pissed. So this episode was actually all about justifying actions and being able to flesh out characters' reasonings for why they feel a certain way. And that was ultimately the focus on General Hale, who you see here, and basically why it is that she's part of Hydra and why she's so adamant to get her daughter Ruby to be part of this whole plan and why she needs Coulson. This whole material was handled really well and really clever, because it opens up with a 28-year-old flashback, which is a little weird because when you do the math, that means that this flashback takes place in 1990 with Hale as a young girl in Hydra headquarters going through the school, their programs, all that stuff. And yet they're playing 80s music. Okay, weird. It's like playing 70s music when it's 1980. It's a little... Yeah, there was a time where there was like a brand of music that felt like it could belong either in the 80s or the 90s. Here, the music was straight up not 80s, and yet it was already 1990. By then, you have some tracks that felt, you know, you could have played Prince or something, but then again, that would have been a huge amount of money to pay for loyalties and for licensing, so makes sense. Anyways, we see a young Hale, and it was this entire segment that to me was the best part, because it did something that you want so many different properties to handle really well with care, and they managed to do it here in S.H.I.E.L.D. And that is to take a villain, who ultimately Hale is here in the back half of Season 5, and make her a compelling one. Make her a person who believes is right, because that's ultimately what's one of the best villains, much like Marvel has been doing several times here, and I mentioned this before in another reference with Killmonger in Black Panther, where he believes he is in the right. Here, Hale believes that she is in the right, especially after realizing the slightly tragic background of her comeuppings within Hydra. That was not only clever in the way of bringing back so many old characters, whether it be Daniel Whitehall in his current state, or even the young, Tiny Toons versions of some characters you know from the MCU, such as Agent Sitwell from the Captain America movies, as well, Winter Soldier, as well as a couple cameos in Avengers, I believe, as well as Von Strucker from the beginning of Age of Ultron, which was really nice and really clever to do that. But more to the point was Hale being impregnated, which was really fucked up, because this is kind of like a science fiction approach as to a girl who has very young ambitions, and then she realizes she's pregnant, and you know that the future is kind of potentially dead at that point. And I'm glad that this show is able to kind of acknowledge that, but with a little sci-fi comic book twist, while incorporating it into the creation of Dove Cameron's character Ruby, and exactly why it is that Hale overlooks her like a very mother, but with that slight disconnect, like, you know that there's something not quite right there, like maybe she might not be a legitimate daughter, and you can tell now from that flashback that that was in fact the case. As the episode progresses, we see more and more time kind of advancing, catching us up to where we are now with her having Coulson under siege, under captivity. But prior to that, we get a really cool reintroduction of Talbot back into the whole storyline, and this was really well done, much like with those cameos that we've had of previous characters during the 1990s segment. but here it explains where Talbot has been this entire time, and even in just one scene. I mean, we've had this before, but Talbot gets fleshed out again with that scene between him and his son. That was my favorite moment, where he was having that lapse in judgment because of his injury, and then moving forward, you see him remaining a loyal character, a very rounded character, very three-dimensional, while at the same time also going back to Hale and kind of understanding her methods, and also providing a very firm explanation as to how she's able to keep in contact with this confederacy, which is like an amalgamation of various alien races that might be hinting at something coming very, very soon within the MCU, and Hale's supposedly trying to prevent this. So it's got cool connections, it's able to utilize supporting characters that we haven't seen in a while, but in a very clever way that doesn't feel shoehorned in, and at the same time you're fleshing out a decent villain, and you're doing that all along the way to catch us up as to where Coulson's at, catching us up with not just where he has been this whole time, but also with how this whole plan that Hale is trying to connect, which was ultimately a really captivating reveal, which is that she's not so much interested in Hydra, she's more interested in unifying both Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. so that not only can they prevent this war from happening, which they never flat out say by name, but come on, they show one ship, and we could argue it might be Thanos' ship, or it could be one of his, Black Order ships. I don't know. They never straight up. I feel like they're leaving it open so that in case they can't do it because of the way, because they want to try to avoid spoilers, because this in and of itself could be potentially a spoiler or an angle to the war that isn't within Infinity War that S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of trying to tackle. So for now, it's a possible Infinity War tie-in, but considering that they're talking about this war that's coming to Earth, and knowing that on April 27th we're gonna be seeing a giant war land on Earth, specifically Wakanda, leading up to Infinity War. Come on, it's gotta be. And then this leading up to Coulson's almost there swift move to dodge this whole plan because of her mentioning of the Destroyer of Worlds, which is what Whitehall called it. It's a really good note to kind of leave it on, because now I'm starting to get the feeling that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is doing what Walking Dead really wanted to nail with that whole eeny, meeny, miny, mo thing with Negan of who are they gonna kill? Who are they going to do? Here, it's a little deeper than that. It's not about who's going to die. It's more about who's ultimately the one to really blame for the destruction of the world. Is it going to be Ruby because of her super enhanced powers? Or is it going to be Daisy under duress because she's either ends up being captured by Hale's team, or maybe she does it while trying to fight Hale's team? Who knows? Especially if they're managed to find a way to infuse gravitonium into her. It's some really nerdy shit, but it's a really good thing to kind of balance it with the very emotionally heavy episode that we had last week, and then here we got a way to really nerd out with the plot, while at the same time along the way doing something really well crafted, which is to really round out and make a villain three-dimensional so that you can kind of get the gist of where they're coming from. And that's something that Hale was missing for a little bit, and I'm glad to see that now I can't just look at her and be like, man, she's such a smug bitch. I can't do that. Now I'm like, no, considering how young you were when they dropped this bombshell on you about wanting to impregnate you, yeah, that's some hefty shit, and some relatable shit too, because she looks like she was around that age where we happen to be in that country, and I hate to get this into some real world terms here, but it's one of those things that S.H.I.E.L.D. has done from time to time that makes it one of the great shows, is that it's never afraid to tackle some heavy shit. Just a couple of episodes ago, we had May throw a line saying to Ivanov, saying that, okay, what are you planning on doing? Are you just going to be another Russian who dictates our democracy? Putin, yeah, so S.H.I.E.L.D. does that from time to time, and I feel like here, whether or not it was an accident, they managed to do it. And because of that, it may not have been the emotional gut punch that last week's episode, but it's still a really excellent follow-up that manages to avoid the filler trope, while at the same time does a great job at moving the plot forward in incredibly interesting ways, while doing something that is very tough to do, flesh out a villain and make you think, you might have a point, and man, you can't help but be sucked into an episode like that. So I'm going to be giving Rise a Shine a very high 8 out of 10. Definitely one of the better episodes of recent memory. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Do you think that it was a really good episode to kind of flesh out a character like Hale, who has been needing it for some time? And what do you think of all these Hydra connections that were revealed, as well as the plan that Hale has set in motion? Please post all of your insights in the comments below. Make sure you support the video by hitting the like and share buttons. And speaking of buttons, you can also hit the subscribe one for more reviews of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the future. Until next time, guys, see you later. This debuted back in 2003 when it was becoming really hot with the whole intellectual property of not just Spider-Man, but pretty much anything that's Marvel related for a very key demographic centered around young teens. And what better network to put this thing on than on the network that is very much aimed at young teens, MTV.
Best dressed? Please, the girls got hips like snack trays.